Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Mind Radio Show on We Act Radio. We're powered by Ethical Electric. You know this must be special because we are doing a Facebook Live. I love these people. They have the best product in the world. They keep winning awards for their product. This is all the leadership team, the founders of DC Brau. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, normally we do a segment called the Idea of the Week and the Did You Know. We're going to kind of feel our way through that because we're live again on camera, not usually in the studio. And, you know, you all feel free to chime in, then we'll jump into the questions as well, too. But get an opportunity really to introduce yourself and your titles and stuff at DC Brau. You want to start, Mary?
Sure. I'm Mari Rodella, and I'm the Chief Community and Culture Officer at DC Brau Brewing Company. And I kind of, you know, as an owner of a small business, you wear a lot of hats, and I wear a lot of hats at our company. I do a lot of our compliance and HR and new programming, and I represent our company on local boards around town. So I've probably met a lot of you around town. But yeah, it's great to be here.
Welcome.
Yeah, my name is Jeff Hancock, co-founder, brewmaster at DC Brau, glorified lab technician. Yeah, I essentially write a lot of the recipes, you know, for the brewery. So a lot of the products you have out in the market, I had a big hand in.
Wonderful.
I'm Brandon. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DC Brau. I do a lot of email, but the stuff that really gets me excited is a lot of the branding, product conceptualization, and a lot of the sales and marketing that we do.
Wonderful. So again, welcome to Behind the Mind Radio Show. We are live on Facebook on We Act Radio. You get a chance to hear the broadcast on radio as well. But, you know, this was such a special time to have all three in one space that we said, let's, you know, pull out the cameras and make this a big to-do. So, but you see all the products sitting here, DC Brau. We'll talk about that as well and some new things they have going on. But, you know, the idea of the week, we have this thing called the vessel. So apparently this is a system that lets consumers check out a free mug. So they get an opportunity, like a library book or literary book. They get a chance to drop off their mug at a location so that it is really sustainability, to limit waste, you know, when you come. So it's this new startup called The Vessel, and they're operating out of Boulder, Colorado, and they'll soon launch a pilot in San Francisco, actually. So what they'll do is the part of it that is the free for the customers, the coffee shop will pay 25 cents and charge to cover the vessel's cost of washing and restocking. So you walk in with your mug, they'll be able to restock, and 25 cents is like really low. Yeah, that's really cheap. So if customers don't return it, then they're charged $15 in order to own it.
Okay.
As well, which still isn't bad either. You know, that's not a bad cost. So for the customers that don't have phones or credit cards, you know, things like that, because I was like, how are you making it? Because everybody doesn't have a credit card, everybody has a phone, you can't make assumptions. So they can pay a little extra fee for the compost of the actual cup is what they're doing. So for me, it'd be good if they can get rid of that extra fee. If people don't have a credit card and a phone, you kind of have to think about what that's about. Too. You know, you got to go a little deeper into that as well. So they said it's a little early, but they're looking at January. They're working out some legal things, and then they plan on launching a pilot in the fall in which they'll be able to do the vessel. San Francisco will roll out first. Wouldn't be bad if they came to DC and tried something like that out. Because we're supposed to be such a green city, and be able to do something like with 25 cents to have a mug, to take it in, have it washed, taken care of, know that it's part of saving the planet, I think will be a really good thing. So the vessel is something new coming out. It's part of our idea of the week because it's a new innovation coming to the market. And you can go to fastcompany.com or you can go to vesselworks.org and check them out, and you'll find out more about this particular product. But I think it's a really good start to trying to help us with the things that are going on in the world today. Because as you know, if you watch the news, you see Jane Fonda and who else was it? The guy who did the Joker. What was his name?
Jack Nicholson.
No, the new one. Joaquin Phoenix. They recently got arrested for, you know, protesting and things like that. Yeah, on the Hill. So this is playing into how, you know, the whole thing of environmental sustainability and climate change. So this is what the vessel is as well. So that is our idea of the week. And for the Did You Know, this month continues to be International Creativity Month. So for those who are makers and artists, and I consider DC Brau team definitely part of creativity. Bringing innovation and products design to the market is International Creativity Month. So we always ask, what are you doing to make sure that you're pushing forward your creativity during the month? Do you all have any extra stuff that you do outside of work?
Yeah, Mari and I do a lot of yoga.
Okay.
Brandon's an avid runner.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been so there's a group that's based here in DC, and they're working with a group in Australia. And I'm a knitter, and I haven't been knitting for a while, but I've started knitting again because they're asking for birds' nests for birds that have been injured in Australia. So I've been knitting a little bit more lately. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
And Brandon, you're a runner?
I am a runner, yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah.
I like to run. So I run all over the city.
You do.
I like the Anacostia Trail a lot.
Okay.
So I run down that quite frequently. But yeah, I think actually a lot of our creative energy has been spent at the brewery recently, to tell you the truth. I mean, we've had our creative caps on there big time, and rolling out our newest product has been an example of, I think, a lot of creativity coming to the market with the Seltzer is sort of uncharted territory, at least for breweries of our size. So, you know, when you own and operate a business, you sort of spend all of your waking and non-waking time there, including dreams.
Yeah.
Yep.
That follow
Very
you.
true. Very true. Very, very true. And I taste the seltzer, and it's very good. It really is. There's a refreshing taste to it. And I'm not a beer drinker, but it tastes really good. I was like, when I first tasted it, and I know Jeff was joking, I was like, "Can my child drink this?" That's a no for those who are like, "What is she doing?" No, but it tastes really good. And you know, to not be a beer drinker is something that I know I could consume. You know, it's something I
That's
can
one of the
consume.
reasons why we made it is because there are folks who aren't beer drinkers or can't drink beer because they have, you know, gluten intolerances or are, you know, worried about the caloric intake or whatever. And so we like to have this as an option for people who come to our brewery who now have this as a choice. So
that's a new thing to the DC Brau family.
Brand new. Yeah,
Okay.
so we launched it literally right before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And so it hasn't even had 2 full months in the market yet, really.
Wow.
And it's been a great experience for us. It was really exciting to experiment and trial and really get the creative juices flowing with a product so radically different from the rest of our product portfolio. But also we were able to apply a lot of the sort of same craft beer ethos of quality and locality to the product. So it seemed very familiar in a lot of ways.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
was cool.
And like with all our products, everything is produced and packaged in-house.
Okay.
Nothing
Great.
outsourced, all made here in the 202.
I was just saying, right here in Washington D.C.
That's
as
great.
Well, yeah. So let's dive in, and then I'm going to direct this to Brandon. So tell the DC Brau story.
Yes. Okay. The DC Brau Story. Well, the DC Brau Story goes back actually over 10 years at this point. So it was like 2008, 2009 that we had come together and we were really starting to get the wheels turning, speaking about creativity with planning what this brewery was going to be like. It was a lot of, you know, additional hours onto our normal 9-to-5 jobs, just sort of time at each other's houses, going late into the night, planning everything we could, writing business plans. And I'd already written a couple business plans for restaurants, but none of them seemed, and I thought that was the path I was going to take in my career, but none of them were like really striking and seemed like I could get them financed or whatnot. Because, you know, I feel like the hardest part of starting a business is really capitalizing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd also been homebrewing a lot and had this epiphany, like, oh, this is, you know, the golden idea. There's 1,600 ABRA accounts or ABC licensed accounts in town, and they don't have anything local to sell. And very serendipitously around the same time, a friend of ours had introduced us at a party. And he had said, Brandon, you know, you've got this brewery idea. This is Jeff. He is an actual professional brewer. The two of you should talk. And so that was sort of where everything started. And very shortly thereafter, we were pretty much fully immersed in the project. It didn't take a long time for us to decide we wanted to partner up and do this. And Mari was right there also from the start. We were all holding down our normal jobs at that time point, but it was a lot of late nights, like I said, a lot of planning. And then finally in 2009, we incorporated because we had our business plan written. We got a offering document together, and we decided it was time to finally start taking money. And those were some of the wildest days, because I remember, there's a lot of no's, there's a lot of letdowns, there's a lot of time that you spend, maybe weeks talking to somebody about an investment and it doesn't happen. But then on the flip side, there's those times when it does happen, and nothing is more validating of a win than when somebody puts their money behind your idea and says, yes, I believe in it. And that's, I think, sort of when we really started to see, yeah, this is going to happen. And so that was the start, but it wasn't until 2011 that we had finally built out a space, populated it with beer making equipment, and actually had our first product. So we debuted on tax day, April 15th.
Okay, all right.
2011.
Yeah, it was a lengthy process, and it's I would say the memorable moments for me were getting that first check, which kind of validates what we're all trying to do. And then throughout the fundraising process, we had set an escrow that we weren't not going to touch the money until we get to a certain level.
Okay.
And then when we got that last $30,000 check, because me the whole time I'm like, this is great, might not work, this is like an uphill battle, because you just get used to rejection, but you keep plugging away. And then we got that last $30,000 check, and escrow got broke, and I was like, oh man, here we go. Stuff's about to hit the fan. And yeah, it was a beautiful moment, and that's kind of when it became a very real thing for me.
Right.
The thing about starting the business too is that it wasn't, there's lots of different businesses you can start and ways you can start. You can start small, you can start big. And for us, this was sort of in between, but it was just around the amount of commitment that we really couldn't stay on with our money-making jobs too far into the actual cycle of starting the business. So it was towards the summer, it was late August of 2010 when we quit our jobs. And at that point, we moved into our vacant space off of Bladensburg Road and started the build out. And at that point, it was literally an all day, almost all night obsession for us to get the place ready. Right. It was a dusty, sort of broken down warehouse, in the very tip of Northeast off of Bladensburg Road, behind a building. And there was a lot of work to be done just in improving the space. And we didn't have any extra money to spend on that. We bootstrapped this thing. We really started it with about 2/3 of what would have been comfortable. So that just meant we had to do a lot of extra work, and small work like painting the walls, the bigger works like non-essential plumbing, things like that that we could do without needing a professional to knocking down walls, installing windows, repairing glass panes. We were doing
even
it
our
all.
bar, we used all the resources we had. So the bar that we built for our tasting room, that is still our bar, is made out of the freight boxes that the packaging, our
glycol system came in.
So it's pretty incredible. We did what we could to just make it happen.
And we've modernized it slightly since then. But if you go into the tap room, it still has the feel of what it looked like and felt like when we first opened the brewery.
Wow. And I'm pretty sure that's what fascinates people too when they get tours or whatever as well, right? That they're saying that.
Yeah, you go to so many spots and you see these really well built out, polished tap rooms, and sure, in the back of my mind, oh, that would be great and nice to have, but every time I come in, it takes me back to that first time we got the keys. So there's a definite nostalgia factor there. And the caveat, before I got into beer, I was actually a professional home improvements contractor. So
you added value.
Took one hat off, put another one on. I was like, all right, here's what we're doing. This is how you paint.
That's right.
I'll take care of some of the plumbing, but at that point, you're pulling from any skill set, regardless of how relevant it was in your career up to that point. So.
That's right. It's part of being an entrepreneur.
You learn all the things you need to know.
And you figure out, okay, this is why that had value, even if I didn't understand it at that time.
And if you don't know it, you fake it to make it.
That's right. You sure do.
That's real talk right there.
You sure do. So how did it feel to win that first award?
What was the first award? I would say the first big award that stuck out for me was, so when the time of the brewery opening, there was 1,500 operating breweries in the country. That includes your Budweisers, your Boston Beers, all the way down to the smaller guys like us. And they do an annual beer competition out in Denver called Great American Beer Fest. That when that first started in kind of the early 80s, I think there was 20 breweries attending. And nowadays, I think now there's almost 8,000 breweries in actual operation, with a couple thousand more in planning. But we entered a beer, you know, and we were attending. It was like, I think the second time for me, and, you know, going to Denver, just going to a place where you're like, I'm a business owner. Like, we entered these categories, you know, maybe we'll hit, maybe we won't. But yeah, sitting in the stands and then hearing them read out, I think it was it for the Citizen? Or?
Yeah, it was Citizen. No, the first one was actually your favorite foreign movie.
Yeah. So it was a recipe that we made with a local home brewer who was he was kind of like a career lab scientist, did a lot of biological work, and but yeah, we submitted it and sitting in the stands and heard it called, you know, and you kind of have to do a double take where you're like, did I just hear what I think I heard?
Like, I remember shaking because we were so.
And then you
like,
see it on the
shocked.
screen because it's in a massive convention center. So then you see your name and the beer on the screen, and we got a silver medal for it. And then you get up and you run down and like, you know, we were just all so geeked out.
Yeah.
And like, I think I almost walked past the line because I just wanted to get up there and get that hardware. And, but no, that was very memorable. And then, yeah, there's been a lot of competitions we've entered over the years. And, you know, every award is great. It helps validate what you do,
Yeah, it does.
regardless
Absolutely.
of size or buy-in from other breweries. But that was the most memorable for me.
Right. So what was it, you know, the wicked problem, as we call it, that made you say, we need to start a DC Brau?
Well, there wasn't one in DC.
Okay.
So there was a beer called Foggy Bottom several years prior that had gone out of business. That was a contract brewery. So even though it was marketed to Washington, D.C., it was actually made in upstate New York.
Okay.
And your profit margins are a lot different when you contract brew, and I think it was hard to keep that brand around. And when that brand did go under, there was a very famous sort of lengthy article in the Washington Post about why the owner thought it didn't work.
Okay.
And that was you know, about 6 or 7 years before we opened, I feel like.
Right.
And in that time, the market had really changed. You know, DC had become a lot more of a restaurant town. There was a lot more bars, a lot more restaurants. There was a scene that was consuming a lot of craft beer, but there wasn't a beer from DC. And so we really saw that as an opportunity. And both being very proud of Washington, DC, and being from the area, we thought this is something that this city needs to have.
Yeah,
You know, why
totally.
shouldn't it have it?
Right.
And we felt that we were sort of we had a unique skill set in order to bring it to the city. Jeff being from the brewing side, and prior to opening the brewery, my professional career was in wine distribution and marketing.
Okay.
So we had complementary skill sets. We had the know-how to not only make the product, but get it out there. So we thought, let's give this a try.
Yeah. I didn't even know that it was none in DC at the time. Yeah, that's not that long ago either, right?
So the last brewery closed in 1956.
Okay.
It was the Christian Heurich Brewing Company.
Right, the
Yeah.
same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And they were production breweries, so that means that they produce beer that you could buy in bottles or cans.
Okay.
And then you have a brew pub model, which has a restaurant associated with it.
Got it.
So-
Okay. All right. Thank you for the terminology.
Yes. but yeah, when we first when we kind of got up and running, and we actually took some some concept stuff down to we were good friends with he was counsel for Harry Thomas, a gentleman named James Pittman.
Okay.
And we kind of ran something by him, kind of like a little acid test to be like, should we take this in front of other people? But of course, we have our 4 flagships, the Public and Corruption. But we had the red Capitol Dome with, I think it was Corruption on it, right?
Yes.
I believe. So we put it in front, and obviously, like politics and corruption kind of go hand in hand. And it was like people's jaws dropped, went right to the floor. So we did a quick rebrand strategy and launched to the public.
Okay.
But the follow-up beer to that was the Corruption,
Okay.
which was implied to be like it's going to corrupt your palate, because at the time, like IPAs, it's an acquired taste. It's a bitter beer. It's very aromatic. And that is still our number 1 seller today.
Is it? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. The idea with the Corruption was that it was sort of beer branding in general can be sort of risque, or just have double entendre meanings. That's something that's very common. And with IPAs traditionally being so bitter, we figured the Corruption was like the perfect name for our IPA. But yeah, it's been, especially being a brewery from the nation's capital, people really do resonate with that beer, with that style, and with that name. So it has been, especially the past 2 years, Go figure.
Yeah.
The top selling beer that we have.
Wow.
It was the public before that.
So the synchronicity. The synchronicity of it all.
Just the facts.
So you all are used to just being disruptors, huh?
Yeah, in our own little way.
Yeah.
You know, and the other thing about it too, like what used to irk me is before we were opening and we are all kind of going out and enjoying, bars, drinking beers. It's like you had breweries in Maryland and one in Delaware that, we're DMV locals.
Oh, I see.
And I'm like, yeah, but not really.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing anything within DC proper. So that was.
And these are pretty large breweries.
Yeah, large regional breweries, and when you have. It's like with anything, when you have big breweries that have a lot of money behind them, they can easily, with all the marketing dollars, just kind of put out this fire. Oh, these young upstarts. Like, let's kind of try to make them relevant. But thankfully, DC being the transient city, and everyone, that even if you don't live here, that comes through for various parts of a career, like, everyone's got love for the city. So I figured it would resonate.
Very true.
One of the things that's really interesting about DC being transient, especially in the political nature, a lot of folks come to the city to work on the Hill or whatnot. And when they're exposed to our brand, they have no idea how young it is. I mean, in this grand scheme of things, we are pretty young. But
the
locals do. But like folks who come to town who are exposed to it just think it's a very established, old brewery, which is sort of flattering. But we always try to get the truth out there. So Jeff and I really like to get out. Meet people, expose them to us as well as the brand, Mari too, so that people will see that we are the people behind the brewery, and we're all still very much connected to the daily operations of the brewery.
Which is really clear. I mean, it's apparent to me, at least. Let me say that. But that goes into the question too about it, talking about you all engaging community and collaboration, which I know is really big for the brand as well.
It's really important for us. And honestly, like for us, it's about authenticity and interaction with our community. Like I sit on the board for Think Local First, which you are also a part of. And, I think it's about finding spaces where we feel like there's relevance for us, but there's also that synchronicity and that share of core values. And so a lot of the organizations that we work with around town, and we do have a core group of nonprofits that we work with, and you can find them on our website under partners. But they're organizations that are local organizations that support the community here in DC and that share our values, and that we are really we are dedicated to making sure that what they're doing is supported by what we can offer.
Got it.
And also, but we all have things we're passionate about, and so we kind of spread the love a little bit. But there's a lot of just amazing relationships that we've been able to build over the past 9 years. So
a lot of historical partnerships that Mari's cultivated really well.
Because it's like, there's so many well-deserving charities out there that you can give to, and you can see the measurable effect it's having in its respective community. But we wanted to make sure that we could do those here in town, so we can actually see, where our charitable efforts are helping out and being actualized. And
going back, we identified a very specific point in time where we needed to change our community and charitable focuses, because as a brewery, we get requests all the time. And we felt like at the end of the day, we were giving away a ton of product, a ton of, and other donations, but we weren't having any measurable effect because it was spread so thin and so far. So at that point, and it was really Mari who was behind this effort, we decided that what we wanted to do was focus our efforts with some community partners where we could have a measurable impact. And we transitioned into that system and organized it very well, and the result is sort of the program that we have today.
And some of those organizations are, they're the Greater DC Diaper Bank, we work really closely with them, run by Corinne Cannon, who also does a lot of advocacy work at the city council level, and just making sure that, recently, I think she helped pass legislation that basically makes it so that diapers aren't taxed in town, because those things are taxable and they really shouldn't be. They're necessary.
Absolutely.
So we work with those types of organizations that really are making a profound difference in the city, and it's it's been wonderful to be a part of what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And we do take on new partners here and there, and we do smaller donations, but we really try to focus, like Brandon said, and dig deep with some of these organizations so that we are having a measurable impact, and so they know every year that they can count on us. We do this Pride Pills with the Washington Blade Foundation and with Smile. And they know every year that they can count on us for this event, and they get a considerable amount of money. I mean, it's not massive, but it's very helpful, and it's something they can count on. And they know that they can always go to DC Brau if they need to. So that is meaningful for us. Yeah.
So is it unusual for a brewery to have, because it really, like you said, it's a program.
Yeah.
That people, is that unusual in the industry for people to do that?
It's not the norm, but it's not unusual.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
A lot of people that we respect in the industry have similar programs.
Okay.
Obviously, this is a very capital intensive industry, and I would never, look down upon or say that a brewery could do more, because it's very challenging to make money in this industry. But the people that we look up to and the people who are making it work financially are giving back to their communities, and especially we've got DC in our name, so it feels a little disingenuous to not do what we can to give back. Now, we're very fortunate to be in the position to do so. And if we weren't in the position, we wouldn't probably have the structure that we've got. But it's we're fortunate, and it's nice to sort of pay that back to the city.
But it also has to be part of who you all are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In some way, too, that the statement that you made, that kind of has to be embedded in who you are, to make sure that that's something that you do, as you build a business, as well, too, in saying that. So, we talked about wine before. We had wine experts on before we ended the year in 2019. When we talked about this as well, about the tourism, of it. So, beer tourism, and it's important to breweries as well, because you see a lot of the touring and, so how does that impact the businesses as well, and the importance of it?
It's really important for our industry, and it's something that actually we've, as a brewery, but also with our guild, have been pushing and working with Destination DC and with other organizations, even as part of the guild, to really develop programming so that we can have an impact and get people to be aware of the fact that there are homegrown breweries in Washington, D.C., because that's not the easiest information to find, especially for people who are, just coming for the Smithsonian's. But people are looking for interesting new things to do. So we have like a map on the Destination D.C. website that shows where all the breweries are.
Oh, cool.
And we're also working on trying to figure out other programming with the other breweries, because I think that's where we have the greatest impact in doing something like this. But as an individual brewery, it's super important for us.
Driving business to the tap room is very important. For one, as I mentioned, it's very capital intensive. We are a production focused brewery, which means that most of about 90% of our sales really is done through traditional distribution methods. So in those methods, we receive less profit per ounce, because we have a distributor, we have a retailer, we've got all these partners we're working with. When we direct sale at the brewery, we're able to, maximize that profit per ounce, which is the best way really for us to sell beer direct to the consumer. But it's hard to get people to come to the brewery. I'm not going to lie. That is a challenge, especially when we're sort of in the corner of the city. Most of the people in our tap room come from the direct neighborhood. We don't get a lot of people coming across town. We don't get a lot of people who are here visiting. We might get a few who are, the diehard beer enthusiasts who want to come check us out. But we are always trying to develop new programming for the tap room. We've hosted a comedy night. We have hosted, we're going to be hosting a first-time homebuyer seminar coming up. So we're always trying to find ways that we can drive people to the brewery. We host a professional wrestling.
Which is
that's great. The next one is on March 7th.
Okay.
And it's actually pride focused.
Yes.
It should be really cool. But it's sort of it's not like it was when we first opened, when there was just, a few of us around, where the visits to the brewery were natural. Some of that enthusiasm seems to have waned a little bit from the consumer, or they're just going to places that are closer to the downtown areas.
I see.
So we really do have to put some creative energy into getting folks out to the brewery. But one of the biggest successes of that every year is our holiday market that Mari organizes. That is a community focus on Small Business Saturday, and we
invite basically all DMV based makers, so it's been really exciting. And we went from the first year we did it was 2013 with Think Local First. It was part of this Made in DC program, and we had 8 vendors. You remember that? 8, and it was this tiny little fun event, and they all did really well. And we were like, well, we should do this again. So then we've been doing it for 7 years now, and this year we had like 45 vendors and 7 food trucks, and we had a section for the nonprofits, and I mean, it's grown to be this huge thing that we get thousands of people to visit the brewery, and it's really cool.
Cool.
It's a lot of fun.
We definitely take advantage of that concentrated foot traffic on that particular day, and typically, I mean, that's more or less where we debuted the Seltzer, and this new second year we've done this, but it's kind of our our champion barrel aged beer. It's a 15% stout, and typically I would say like drinkers, at least for me, like when it's summer and warm, like I don't necessarily want to drink a big dark beer, but the minute that season changes and goes from fall to winter, I want all the strong beers, like north of 8%, and you get people already in the mindset of I'm buying gifts for people, so like what's a couple beers here or there? So
and the label's just really cool.
Yeah, so let's talk about product design though. That is a cool label though.
It's like shiny eyes.
But talk about product design, the research and things that go into you all do. Because I know you've even run a contest one time where you had people design the DC Brau.
That's for Pride Pills,
Okay, So talk about that, because I know this is a big part of, again, your model too. You see it on the shelves, and it's always the colors and the imagery and things like that that go along with DC Brau.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely, I'd say more important than ever, because you can have a brewery that makes great liquid, but if the marketing and the label images around it aren't like on par with that beer, like it's not going to reach a greater audience. And now in this day and age of craft beer, like this can, so it's a sticker label on a blank aluminum 16-ounce can, and that gives us flexibility. If we want to do a lot of one-offs, we can do. We buy a roll of stickers and we can put them on, and it's just the trend now with a lot of these newer breweries, because now that there are 8,000, a lot of those are smaller, like taproom focused business that don't necessarily have a distribution model. But one way to catch that consumer's eye, and social media is excellent for this. I mean, some of these labels are like works of art. You'd be hard pressed to find like the actual name of the brewery on it. But people have created hype around their individual brands. To where like if I see something, with literally broccoli on the label, I'm gonna know it's this brewery from New York, because they just do these really creative brandings where they call their beers like baked, like one is called baked ziti, one is called broccoli, like another one is called fruit punch.
Wow.
And it's definitely not indicative of what's in the can, but like they're known and they have that market recognition. And so it's super important, and it also helps our distribution partners, to kind of further help sell the product. And social media, a lot of times these days, people that are buying the beer on the retail level have already seen the imagery, and they're like, hey, I want this can. I want to bring that in, or our consumer base has requested it.
I mean, a few years ago, everything changed in beer marketing. So prior to that, everything was really about brand consistency, brand recognition, very traditional sort of, like you have with our flagship line. You see one of those cans on the shelf, you see the Capitol Dome, you see the color, that's a DC Brau can from across the aisle. But when we really started having this rapid growth in the industry, people got much more creative with packaging. I mean, some of these cans, you are hard pressed to even find the name or anything that would associate the brewery. They're just a lot of like abstract color labels, and
they're beautiful.
And they're beautiful. They're gorgeous. And that really did change a lot of what was going on in the market. And what we seek to do is sort of like have our cake and eat it too. So our flagship line is very traditionally branded. They all sort of look very similar with some slight alterations. And then we have things like this that are all one-offs. On the Wings of Armageddon is another example of that. A lot of the one-off or small production beers that we brew don't necessarily fit a mold or a template. And they're in smaller production, and they are really meant to sort of appeal to that drinker who's looking for that weird, unique beer. Maybe once a pastry stout, or maybe once a New England IPA, which are all sort of newer, more hip styles that are less proven.
Okay.
But typically what you see in these sort of like really crazy elaborate packages. And so, you know, we're sort of trying to play to both sides of that.
Okay.
One with our creativity and the other with our consistency.
Okay. All right. Well, one of the things too was sent over to talk about was diversification, you know, as far as your product is concerned. Does that play into that with your packaging and stuff too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Very interesting. But it's beautiful to me. I mean, it's particularly when you all did you said the pills one where you had the people design it. I thought again a whole thing of the community and collaboration. It brought the audience in to experience the brand, and you know, it makes people loyal. You know, to the brand by being able to participate in what they see on the show.
Absolutely.
And I think so. I was like, kudos because it was well done. You know, is what I say as well.
That was one product where we really cared about, very much so, engaging the community because we wanted it to be a product that was owned by the community as well, and not just the brewery. Being that it was a fully charitable focus. I mean, we donated every dollar made off that beer to Smile and to the Blade Foundation, and it was important that we had buy-in from the community. So
on what they wanted to see.
On what they wanted to see.
And we do it annually, so that is coming up again.
Okay.
I think we tend to launch it around like February.
Yep.
So we can send you information about that.
Our planning meeting for it is at the end of the month on the 30th, and then usually within a week after that we launch it.
Okay, cool. And so it's for the same organization, or now it's a new organization?
It's for the same two organizations.
Okay, all right. Okay, cool. I mean, if you were we talk about International Creativity Month. You're a designer. I mean, why? I mean, you go.
We
for
get
that,
a lot of really fun.
The pool of submissions has definitely grown over the years. It used to be, you know, you look at, you know, you kind of put everything out, and you look at it, and everyone gravitates toward one right away. Then it's like we got to take into account like kind of the popular vote because we do put it out for a vote on that. But then you know it also has to make sense.
Right. For the brand.
For the beer, for the marketing aspect. Right. And, you know, I feel like. I mean, every submission we've got year over year, like nothing is a dud, which makes like
they put the time and energy into it. Although, they care about it.
One of the things I have noticed is the content of the imagery has gotten more serious.
Okay.
So the first year it was very celebratory and happy and sort of the spirit of pride.
Okay.
And then we started to see the social impact of what was happening politically in the city. And so we started to see a lot more activist-based design. Exactly, and it's been actually great to see that. I mean, I remember the label that won the second year was three very diverse figures, all with the monuments in the background, and they were all sort of looking away from the monuments.
Oh wow!
And it was a really powerful image.
That is a powerful image.
And it said a lot.
Yeah.
And what's great is when we put these images up to the public vote, and the public decides on who the winner is, and there's so much put into these images behind the scenes as far as the meanings, it makes it even more meaningful for us, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. So let's go to our behind the mind questions real quick and ask you on some of these. I'm gonna throw it out. If you could be a superhero, what power would you possess?
I have a lot of reoccurring dreams of flight. So
Do
probably
you?
the ability to fly.
Okay.
And when I realize I'm flying in my dreams, I have that moment of actualizing it, and then I basically just fall to the ground.
Do you? And then how does that feel?
And then I'm like, what does that mean? How do I like decipher that? But yeah, that's a very reoccurring theme for me, where it just starts kind of with me like jumping, and then, like my jumps get incrementally higher.
Okay.
And the hang time increases.
Okay.
So kind of like something you would see filmed in the Matrix, you know, like
or Spider-Man
when Neo like jumps up and then they do like that 360 view.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like that.
And you know they get ready to do another Matrix.
Yes, I love that.
How many are there now?
There are
that
three.
Three. That will make number 4 coming. That will make number 4. So far, everybody's returning. So that's gonna be really interesting. Awesome. What about you, Brandon?
I guess it would be some form of mastering, maybe time travel.
Okay.
Like mastering time in some way, because man, there is not enough time in the day.
Yeah,
I've got 2 kids, the business, and then there's like other life. So it's just, you know, it's if I could master time, then I'd be good to go.
Okay, all right, nice. Mari.
So I actually gave this a lot of thought, and I love swimming in the ocean, and I love snorkeling, but I wish I could go deeper. I just want to be able to breathe underwater. I think that would be amazing.
I think that's the first time I've gotten that one.
I would just, you would never see me again. I'd be like, bye.
She said that too. I was like, ooh, I want that one too. Flying me able to swim.
That's the first time we've got that one. Okay, that one makes the list when we do the recap of people's stuff. That one makes the list.
Exactly.
Like Aquaman.
That's something on your neck there.
Like fearsome.
So if you could have lunch with anyone living or dead, who would it be?
Oh, this one. Actually, I would have to pick a family member.
Okay.
It's my great aunt. She passed away over a decade ago, but like I just remember like having the best time with her. My tia Chuy. She lived in Juarez, Mexico, and when we used to go visit her, I used to just have like the most amazing time with her. She just always made me laugh so much, and just had this like enveloping sense of like love, that feeling when you're around someone, and I just would love to have that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. What about you, Brandon?
Oh man, I don't really have an answer for this.
I know it's a hard one. I was like thinking about these all night.
Well, you know, it's like I got a passion for music, passion for sports. Like, you know, your brain can go so many different directions. But after giving it like careful thought, it would probably have to be like the renowned. I think he was Flemish, but a Flemish scientist, Louis Pasteur, who basically made all the modern discoveries in brewing that we use today. Because up until about 225 years ago, people brewed beer with water, malted barley, and hops. And no one knew what yeast was. They basically would throw everything in a barrel that was already had microflora kicking around. But it was like a brewer back in the day. It was like a magician. So it's like you put it in and it's like, voila!
Wow.
Get intoxicated. You're welcome. But, you know, like he discovered that, you know, he made, you know, he's like, oh, there's a fourth ingredient here. It's a sugar fungus called yeast. So just to be able to pick his brain with the Flemish interpreter would be fun for me.
So, Jeff, when people see you, do they think you're part of a music or they think you're a brew master? I
don't know. I would say, like, the brewers have a very typical look, which is typically bearded and slightly grizzly. And
You could be in a jam band.
He does! He does! That's why I say that.
Just came off that tour, you know.
That's really
You're making a lot of money, too.
I take it on. I take it on a compliment. But yeah, you know, like Brandon mentioned earlier, like music plays a huge part in the brewery. Like when we all three first got together, that's, you know, when we had stresses, it's like, hey, let's go out to a club, you know, get our dance on, get our drink on.
One thing that we did not mention prior, maybe we did, but I don't think we did, was that Jeff and I, we did meet at a party, but it was because we were both club DJs.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think you did mention.
Yeah. No, you did not say that.
That's why outdoor space there is like, I'm
seeing
a set of turntables and a mixer, and I'm like, we can do this thing.
That would be cool.
We played like deep house music. We played drum and bass. We played tech house. So we would play around the city, and it was also a really great tension break for a lot of those moments early on when we were like, when everything compiles up and it just feels like it's never going to happen. Like, okay, this idea, we've gotten this far, but it's never going to happen. I don't know if you remember a show from like a long time ago. It was on Fox called Prison Break. And so the whole premise of the show is like, there's all these obstacles for this guy to break his brother out of prison. And every week they solve one, but then another one comes up. And then,
it was a great show.
It ends on the cliffhanger of like, well, if we don't do this, we're not getting out of here. You know? And that's what it felt like. It was like, as soon as we would sort of put out one fire or get one thing taken care of or under control or deal with one agency in DC or something, or you know, just whatever it was, then here comes the next problem. And that sort of hasn't really ended the whole time that we've been in business. But those early days, being able to say, all right, you know what? Let's take a break. Let's go DJ for a bit, and then come back to this afterwards. And that was a great way to clear our heads, come back with a fresh mind, and it was really helpful. But yeah, we were club DJs.
Yeah, that's a really cool background. I can see the house on you though, Brandon. I can see the house music being something that you would do too.
And I still do dabble. I'm playing a gig at U Street Music Hall on the 25th of this month with some other old 40 plus geezers that still go out.
There you go. So you can come and see Jeff at
U Street
Music Hall January 25th.
Yes, ma'am.
That's next week. Okay, cool. All right, wonderful. But did you end up having someone you would have lunch with, living or dead? Did you come up with anybody?
Oh man. So yeah, I guess I have to go the music sense here and go with Jerry Garcia.
All right.
knew it.
All right.
That's a good one, though.
Okay.
That's a good one.
No, it is a good one. Wonderful. So, as a child, what was your favorite toy?
As a child, my favorite toy was Snoopy.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Nice.
So, and I try to get Snoopy on my kids, give them a Snoopy.
Was it
but
Joe
never
Cool
took
Snoopy,
on. It was
or-
Joe Cool Snoopy.
Yeah.
And so, like, I got this thing when I was like just born,
Okay.
and like held on to it. It got raggedy and just like its ear was ripped open. And I would hide like GI Joes in its ear and all stuff. I took it with me everywhere,
Oh,
My
God.
parents had to like come up with a strategy on how they were
How
going
to
to break
get rid
me
of
of
it.
this Snoopy. So yeah, definitely Snoopy.
Wow.
That is cool. What about you, Jeff?
That's funny. I'm gonna go a little bit older into like 5 to 7 year old. Being a typical, I don't know, for me, like, I was obsessed with, kind of all things young boys are, like guns, G.I. Joes, but particularly ninjas.
Oh, okay.
So I convinced my dad, I don't know how I did that at like age 5, but we went down to like a kung fu store where they actually sold throwing stars.
Oh.
And my dad always got, like, he brought me up to like really appreciate the outdoors. But long story short, he cut like a stump for me,
Okay.
tilted it up in the backyard. So I went out with my little $3 throwing stars and
All right.
tried to act like a ninja.
My parents
I would
never
say a
let me
throwing
have those.
star.
I was always like, no,
Of
can
course
get
I
those
was
gum chucks?
supervised.
No way.
I was supervised.
I was going to say you were supervised, so we'll give
Yeah.
your dad that. He's
Either that or a
supervised you.
BB gun.
Yeah.
So
Okay. All right.
I had a really good habit of
This is like a question.
shooting out the neighbors,
It's
lights.
very
So I'd be
telling.
like, oh, that's too
It
far.
is. That's why we answered the toy question is always telling. What are
So
you?
mine was a shark book. I was obsessed with sharks.
Were
as a little-
you? Well, that's the
Yeah.
water thing.
Yeah, it's the
though.
water thing. So
Yeah.
I'm a Cancer. So maybe that's why. But I grew up in I lived for a little while. I've lived a lot of places. I grew up mostly here, but when I was younger, I lived in Texas, and we lived in San Antonio near SeaWorld, and we would go there often just because my parents probably just wanted to.
Yeah, get you something to do.
Yeah. And I was like obsessed with the sharks, and I would go to the Shark Tank and stare at the sharks, and they bought me this book of sharks, and it was amazing. And I just remember, like, I would just always just look through this book of sharks and like the whale sharks, and I was just like really amazed at them.
Wow.
And really, I don't know,
That's
I
cool.
still want to
though.
dive with the whale sharks. I think that would be cool.
So we
Yeah.
get you the ability to breathe underwater without, anything,
Yeah,
and then we done set.
I really
set
need to
it
work
in.
on that. Somebody should be working on that.
So, Mari, what's the motto or affirmation that you live by?
Oh, can we come back to me?
Sure. Who got
I would
it?
say, I would say I'm a pretty karma-based person. So
Okay.
kind of just like, all my actions have a reaction and
Okay.
treat people how I would like to be treated myself.
There you go.
So
All right.
and no prejudgment.
There you go. Perfect.
Just stepping back. Like I find that whenever like I feel my emotions like heat up or I feel lost or I feel overwhelmed, step back. Just in the same way I was talking earlier about like when we had problems and we would DJ for a little bit or whatnot, taking that step back and coming back to something always
That's good.
helps to clear things up.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I had to practice that as I age.
Yeah.
That is-
And well, with two small kids, it comes in really easy.
Oh yeah, and I have one. Yeah. You do it automatically makes you step back.
Yeah.
So you got one.
So
more?
yeah, I do, and because I was like, just not ready to answer that right away. So
That's
thanks for
all right.
giving me time.
Good.
But like, it's really about like self-awareness and like just knowing that like you can always do better, and you always do your best, but always strive to be better. So I'm constantly working on that because I know none of us are perfect. I'm definitely not perfect, and I always try to just there's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
And I always say, who wants to be perfect? Ooh, I don't know about
Yeah,
that.
I'm not perfect, but I mean, you want to
That's
have
gonna be a
a
boring world,
good
though.
impact on.
Yeah,
others, right?
that's different from wanting to be perfect,
Yeah.
though. That
And
means
you should-
everything
See?
has to be right.
See,
Yeah.
just adjusting.
we wouldn't have disruptors. We wouldn't have people doing things.
Right.
Everybody want to be perfect. There's
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
And failure wouldn't exist either.
Yep.
At the same
True.
time. So
Well, without failure, you can't have success, really.
right,
Right.
and all
Right.
you can't.
Yep.
No, you can't, and you got to be willing to take that fall.
Yep.
Mhm.
You got to be willing to take that fall.
Mhm.
So before we close up, What's next for DC Brau? Are there any secrets we can share? What's next?
So, I mean, the biggest thing is the seltzer. That is still a what's next because we just launched it, and we think it's going to be a really big thing for us this year. The category itself was up like 500% last year.
Oh, wow.
It's expected to triple over the next by 2023.
Okay.
So we're really excited to be a player in that game. There's not too many other breweries that are of our size that are doing it. So it's really exciting for us. And also, we do have a new product coming down the road that Jeff can tell you about.
Yeah. You know, kind of as the drinkers turn to being more of a health conscious mindset, you know, like not just going out and getting plowed, but being able to have, say, well, maybe I'll have 10 of these drinks and I'll still be able to walk out standing up. But we're essentially doing a lower alcohol session IPA.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So you still, you know, because IPAs are still like a really big driver in the industry. Everybody's making them. It's kind of how you can measure a brewery. So we're just going to put our own spin on that.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, and probably a lot more barrel-aged products coming out in 2022 for the big beer lovers.
So people out there who are don't live in the city, who are, you know, on Facebook Live, and a lot of people listen to the station all over the world, give them the website and where they can come. So if you're coming to DC as a tourist, you can visit the brewery. So give them the website information, and then we'll close up the show.
So it's www.dcbrau.com, and we're located in Northeast DC in the Fort Lincoln neighborhood.
And Brau is spelled B-R-A-U.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tasting room hours Thursday through Sunday.
There you go. Yeah. Perfect. You know, y'all are great. I appreciate you coming on.
We appreciate
Thank you for having
us.
This has been fun. This has been fun.